Welcome. My name is Sherry Monken, and I'll be the moderator for this session, which is titled Library AI Infrastructure Residency, Integrating AI, Project Management, and Digital Infrastructure for Sustainable Innovation. So before we begin, I have a few reminders. We have a code of conduct for this conference, and I'll be posting a link to that in the chat, as well as a link to an email where you can report any issues related to conduct. You may ask questions in the chat or by using the Q&A option, which also allows you to upvote existing questions. If you want to enable captions, you can do that by clicking on the Show Captions button at the bottom of the screen. And finally, the session is being recorded. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters who are joining us from Carnegie Mellon University Libraries. They are Dom Jebbia, AI Infrastructure Resident and Project Manager, Kenneth L. Rose, Director of the Project Management Office, and Brian Mathews, Associate Dean for Research and Innovation. So welcome to the conference.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And let's get started. So hold on. Let me just move some things around. Good. So I think when it comes to AI, I think the perspective that we want to offer you today is around this question of what does it take from an infrastructure, particularly a digital infrastructure perspective, to be able to design and host and build or support AI projects. And so you saw all of us. This is our nice pictures here, but this is kind of our team that's been exploring this, and we have a lot to share with you. We'll each introduce ourselves a little bit more again in that context, but we're going to just really kind of dig into it. And a little background, in Carnegie Mellon, we've been involved in AI for a very long time. Arguably, this is the first piece of AI software was developed at CMU called Logic Theorist. And the university has really been investing in that, in brand, in everything ever since then. And this is less about Carnegie Mellon, but it's just that's the landscape that we find ourselves in, where it's a university that has really AI and computer science and robotics really is the cornerstone of its identity. And so that kind of asks that question of being the library of that university, how do we lean into that and what can we kind of do? And I think there's so much overwhelm that happens in AI, but I think a way that I try to look at it is very pragmatically and thinking about it as a technology cycle. And we've seen these technology cycles before. Something will emerge, shakes things up, we adapt, we experiment, we adjust and move forward. Thinking about that with the emergence of the Web 2.0, mobile devices, mobile computing, digital humanities, digital scholarship, digital publishing, maker spaces, media services, that whole kind of thing. And I think there in some way there's a similar capacity building and thinking of around AI. So thinking about the ethos of it, thinking about the infrastructure of it, that technical social, which is what we're going to really kind of focus on. We've seen at this conference and a lot of library conferences and workshops the focus on skills and literacies, fluencies, ethics, and environmental. There's a lot that's kind of going on there. But thinking about from, again, if we want to be able to provide support, what are those workflows? What are those service models? What are that policy? What's the planning that goes into AI? And what could we learn from these previous innovations that have made their way? So it's kind of a busy slide here, but thinking about this, again, the major question that we're kind of started with was what would it take to make AI pragmatic and tangible? So instead of just reading about it or even just kind of using a chat GPT or something like that. If we want to build stuff or do stuff or host stuff, we really want to do something with AI. What is that? What would that take? And additionally, like thinking across the different varieties of interest. We have many people in our organization who are innovators and early adopters, are very curious and very capable. What does service to them look like? And then we have people who are, maybe they're interested, but maybe not as technically skilled in that, or maybe they have an interesting data set, but there's not, maybe the imagination of how to apply AI to it. So for a lot of this was figuring out what's that infrastructure, hardware, software, licensing, APIs that would take, and how it's different from what we typically currently have in libraries. What's the tech support for that? And then what's that ability to encourage experimentation and dabbling versus managing expectations in our own sort of capacity. So it kind of boils down to this mindset of let's support some low stakes AI projects, figure out what we need to figure out. So it becomes kind of emergent that by hosting some projects, then we start to answer these questions and figure out what other questions we need to ask and so forth. And gets us to this kind of a thing. And so we landed on the idea of bringing in a resident to help us kind of saddle that role or bridge that role between strategy and operations, sort of theory and action. We'll get into all this stuff next, but again, kind of a project-based role, thinking about the back end and front end, thinking about the interests across our library faculty and staff, and also think about what exists now, what kind of data is available, what kind of workflows or problems or ideas or possibilities kind of are there. And then some loose goals that we wanted to get out of this to really help us, again, figure out that capacity. How is sort of AI support different from other tech support? How could we test and prototype some things to really have real world use cases and all this kind of stuff? How do we make it scalable? How do we support it? What's that software? And the last question there is really the main one. If we're thinking about these annual cycles of investment and budget planning, obviously AI, it's changing every so frequently. But trying to think how can we kind of have an evidence-based approach to understanding what type of positions, what type of hardware, software, what type of things to ask for from an investment point of view. So that's the philosophy of it. And now we're going to kind of go from sort of that vision into how we executed on that. We're about a year in on this experience, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ken Rose. I'll drive the slides.
Yeah.
Let me know as you want to move forward, Ken.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. So what I wanted to start with was to provide a little bit of context about our PMO. What's the purpose of it? What's the role of the PMO in the university libraries? And so we want to turn ideas into structured, supported action. You know, we want things to be can add value. So we have buckets by which we serve our constituents. Is my Wi-Fi okay? Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, we are PMO, so we do project management. We serve as project managers. We're embedded on project teams from project proposal through deliverable. So every step of the way, we are involved in the project. That's one service. So while we may help get the project started, we're not necessarily embedded on the project team, but we can help define the scope, you know, risk mitigation plans, help describe the deliverables, the milestones, and create timelines. But we're not called upon, if needed, to remove barriers and to help things move along. We also do a lot. We've got a lot of traction here with process improvement. We do some process improvement stuff to look at current workflows, see if there are ways that we could streamline and automate things, and sort of like take some of the day-to-day tasks out of people's hands, automate some of those, become more efficient, give that time back to people so they can really focus on bigger things they need to do, innovative things of that nature. And then we started leveraging Gen AI and regular day-to-day project management, doing prompts that help us kickstart off projects. Like, so we have a project proposal, we want to build a project charter, we want to build a work breakdown structure. We'll go ahead and put it in a large language model, and then we'll do a sanity check. It really cuts down the time between project proposal and project plan or work breakdown structure. So it takes a lot of the mundane tasks out of it. You have to do sanity checks. You have to be, clear about the outputs, but it's been really helpful to sort of leverage Gen AI in that way. Next slide. So why do we embed the residency in the library's project management office? Well, we wanted to ensure accountability, pacing, and documentation. That's what we do in the PMO. We also want to make sure it's a library-wide effort. The library's PMO services the whole entire university libraries. We do some external engagement, but we're mainly inward facing. And by having the AI resident within the project management office role available to all the divisions within the university library. We'll keep AI exploration connected to broader priorities. We also like to build a support structure for collaboration. We like to facilitate these conversations with people. Communicating, it's been said that 90% of project management is communicating, and it's so true. I mean, it may be obvious, but it's so important. We like to reach out to people and help to identify gaps in processes. Think about what they're working on. How can Gen AI help what they're trying to do? So these conversations are very important. And then you don't want to have a duplication of efforts. So we're really transparent about the projects that we're working on. Somebody might see something that we're working on and say, hey, we could use that. Dom might build a tool, a proof of concept, or a prototype. And somebody can say, you know what, it's not exactly what I need, but there's enough there that maybe we could use something like that. So we try to, avoid duplication of efforts. We communicate with people. We help identify ways we can help. And that's a big part of what we do. And like I mentioned before, it facilitates our use of Gen AI for things like project charters, work breakdown structure, like I mentioned before. So it's a project-based role. The role of the AI resident is not to teach about AI. It's not an AI literacy role. We have people who fill that role. The resident is there to build proof of concepts, build prototypes, test tools, do demos. Again, people will see some of the things we're working on, like, oh, that's really cool. That could help me with what I'm trying to do. So that's what this is, a hands-on, get in there, mix it up, build type of role. So it's iterative, it's flexible. We do sprints. We get feedback. We go back, tweak it a little bit, and bring it back to stakeholders. So it's really a hands-on, get in the trenches type role. Whereas AI literacy, we have other people, other librarians, who fill that role. So what have we learned? Scoping is critical. AI projects evolve quickly. I talked about sprints. You have to be agile. You got to be able to build something, get the feedback, tweak it, and make it better, make it more useful, help to address whatever issues you're trying to address. And you need that role that sort of blends the technology, strategy, and exploration. A big part of this is exploring ways we can leverage Gen AI to make things better, make things easier, make it work for us. And like I said, I mentioned this earlier, we work with stakeholders to identify gaps in processes that Gen AI can address. So you have conversations with people, you never know what might come up. They might show you a process or a workflow, and Dom would look at it with fresh eyes from his perspective through his lens and say, you know what, I've built something that can address this for you, that can help you, try to get done what you're trying to do. So those are things that we've learned in the year that we've had the AI resident, and Dom has done a fantastic job. Next slide. With that, I will pass it to my colleague, Dom Jebbia.
Thanks, Ken. So hi, my name's Dom Jebbia. I'm an AI infrastructure resident and project manager at Carnegie Mellon University Libraries. We're part of WEIS, that's University Libraries, the ETC, the Sustainability Initiative, and Ideate. My contacts are there. Slide. This is a photo of me outside the Qatar National Library. But a little bit about me, I've been at CMU for 9.7 years. I have a lot of life here at CMU, and I've been able to learn a lot. I got my MSI at Drexel University in 2022. I focused on data science and worked heavily with the Metadata Research Center. I still like to call the Metadata Research Center home, so place very close to my heart. After I graduated, I was an LIS Education and Data Science Integrated Network Group, that's leading fellow. I worked with Tulane University's Biodiversity Research Institute, and we helped develop the Fishare product, which is kind of an AI-ready data set that's self-contained for large fish images. I also have a light affiliation with the Ohio State Imageomics Institute. And kind of going through and making all of these friends and kind of these relationships, I think like, well, what do I want to do back at work? And I focused really heavily on automation. My role is originally in procurement and electronic resource management, and I decided that I wanted to make my job easy. So I started using artificial intelligence and other machine learning processes to erase my job. While I was doing that, I also became a LEGO Series A facilitator. I really get a lot of joy out of working with people and using bricks to help people model ideas and talk about the problems that they're dealing with and the problems they want to confront. Ken has been a great advisor to me, a great mentor. He's kind of pushed me to do the project management professional certification that should be done next year. Slide. So the first thing that I did was talking to everyone. Slide. And the questions that I always asked are, what does the word artificial intelligence mean to you? What about AI excites you? What about AI scares you? And what do you want AI to do for you? Slide. So there were some common patterns. I think that the responses were very broad, and I think I collected the data very qualitatively. It was sort of over the place, and any time that I tried to quantify it, it became kind of a bit of a fool's errand. But people think AI is about everything, anything, and nothing. It is a word that has absolutely no meaning. It has become so large and universal that I will use it in a way, a very specific way, and someone else will use it in an entirely different. And there's really no way to kind of come to that consensus. A lot of people believe that it's going to make life easier. I think that's the general theme of everyone. It's going to make life easier. It's going to create new technology. A lot of people talked about it like magic too, like it's a genie or an elf grant wishes. People are also really scared that it's going to take their jobs. I think that was probably the broadest and most universal of all the responses that I was getting, concern about work and what AI means in terms of that. Some people are kind of afraid of the Skynet war game situation, which is fair, but a little bit lower on my list. And surprisingly, everyone knows about deep fakes, or many people know about deep fakes, and are really concerned about them. And I think that maybe speaks to the certainly our industry and kind of the idea of information literacy within it, but also how we kind of mediate popular culture and determine truth. And the thing that I think more than anything that I heard from people is I want AI to solve blank problem. And it could be any problem, and some other patterns kind of emerged. Slide. Second step is making friends. So slide. I went around and figured out what people are doing. Overall, a lot of instructions going on. People are really interested in creating personas, either of actual human beings or some sort of synthetic human being for instruction or education. Tepper Business School, just across the cut at Carnegie Mellon University, did a lot of work with taking some of our big names, Herb Simon, one of them, and trying to kind of enmesh him or get an AI to behave as him, and integrated that as part of their instruction. Really cool. Everyone's doing evidence synthesis, a lot of cool stuff going with that, both at the raw level and with new products coming out. And everyone's really concerned about ethics. I think that that's something that everyone's talking about constantly, and I think really concerned about what the impact is going to be on themselves and the world around them. But people are also trying to automate everything. Chatbots are kind of the rage, agents. CMU overall has been using it extensively for just general communications. Generation of videos, the kind of generation of general media that's sort of repetitive and tedious and can be simplified a lot with that. Some stuff that I'll talk about later. And again, very interested in kind of video and these general creation of materials and kind of how do we remove ourselves from that process. As far as research, people are really looking at data extraction and pattern recognition. They want AI to figure things out for them. They want it to kind of unlock certain connections between things. And I think models generally are very good at pattern recognition. That is something you can reasonably rely on them for. And everyone's asks the question, like, how do I make my data ready for AI? How do I prepare it in a way that makes it useful and I can use it and I'll be able to use it again in the future? And there was also kind of a small contrary opinion where people thought, well, how do I make my data so that AI can't use it, so that it can be something that can't be ingested into one of these big models. And I think that was really interesting, people's fear of that. But conversation and kind of creating these new patterns of research and trying to figure out what you can do with these things. I think that they are so new and so kind of novel. We really don't know what possibilities exist. Slide. So some patterns that also emerged around campus were, decentralization and siloing. People, don't know what's going on. People have other people working across the university on similar projects. There's a lot of information communication problems. And I think that's maybe because CMU invented a lot of the early computer infrastructure that we live with, and it's hung on. And people have taken some of that legacy knowledge and used it to keep a lot of the university afloat, a lot of the university's technical infrastructure, but it's been so kind of ubiquitous that it's unseen. Some faculty have embraced generative AI and integrated. I think they're very excited about it. It's already in their research, it's already in their instruction, they're already on it. Like the AI is the old thing. But many faculty have just started using generative AI, and they're unsure of the role it plays in pedagogy. I think that there's a lot of questions around assessment and, is the essay dead as a format? And I think that that's something that instructors and educators are trying to suss out at the moment. And the pattern that I noticed about library staff is that everyone was interested in AI. They wanted to use it, but they're unsure what it can improve in their workflows. And I think that, if you think about if a library were a factory, you would have a foreman. The foreman would, be in charge of the team. And if you were hired by the factory, they would teach you how to do your job. And I think that one of the big gaps is that this is new and our workplaces don't know how to teach the workforce. Slide. Back one. Students are experimenting with AI in every aspect of their lives, and we're never going to slow down. We will never catch up. So I think that we need to invest a lot of time and energy into making advances and staying with the conversation, or we will be left behind. And libraries, I think, are really well positioned to leverage their roles in information literacy education to become a central hub for these AI resources. And I think that we can fulfill some of the historical roles and move them into these new roles in the future. So to do that, you hit the ground running. Slide. First, you think that kind of coming out in patterns, APIs and platforms. Big question starting out is like, are any of these FERPA compliant? And how do we know they're FERPA compliant? So that was, a big barrier, not sure within the university who is deciding that. Another question is like, what can I do with the data? What is allowed within the confines of the university's approval? And what shouldn't I do with someone else's data? And ultimately, like, who is deciding these things? Along comes the AI architect, Bo Powers, who has been a lovely colleague and extraordinarily helpful in helping me with my role. Bo, as the AI architect, serves a very similar role to me for the wider university and exists within the office of the CIO and central computing. They create policy, test and approve new products and services, and they serve as a central authority on CMU's generative AI strategy. They help facilitate connections across the university and been very helpful for me to make some of those connections and learn more about what's going on in all of the departments across our experience. As it is right now, CMU has a series of products right now. The big one that is just launching is chatgpt.edu, which grants people access and counts under university's protection, under FERPA, everything works with that. And this is brand new. I think people are really excited about this project, and central computing is working very hard to figure out how to deploy that efficiently. We also have access to Gemini under the same terms, Microsoft Copilot, Notebook LM, and Zoom AI Companion. I believe anything LLM, which is a kind of software that you can download locally and run different models with, is also approved for this. Slide. So something kind of GPUs and hardware. First thing I said when I was talking about this role with Brian was, well, I need some hardware. So I got, at what at the time was a fairly decent computer, and I think by now has become wildly, wildly obsolete. But particularly focusing on the graphics card and what we can then use in managing kind of these new machine processes queued up. It worked for me. I, love my machine, and helped me do a lot of things locally, experiment, and try to figure out what are the limits and what are the practical uses within the workplace, and how we can kind of make things a little more localized and bespoke to us, but also open and flexible. But I figured out doing that. Running models locally is very computationally expensive, and getting GPUs to run models locally is just expensive. This is something that I think that gives libraries a unique position to start to provide some of these resources and be able to take on a new service and role in helping people reach compute. Subscriptions and licensing, I think, have been big questions. People always want to know who pays for it, how do you request it, how do you request something when you don't know how much it costs. The questions have no clear solutions, and the environment is changing rapidly. Thankfully, computing services is, a central entity and is able to make a lot of decisions and kind of set the university policy for the environment. But products are evolving so quickly, and the university's agreements to use those products along with it, and creating something as simple as that has been kind of an ongoing process for everyone involved. A lot of the negotiations that go on between these companies are happening at the university level rather than the library level. We're very used to buying these big packages and collections from vendors, but this is something very different. And I think libraries are very unsure what role they're playing in that right now. We don't buy the ChatGPT license. That is central computing, and they are the ones who have ownership of that product. So I think that that makes sense in a lot of ways, but it does kind of align very much with libraries' role providing these digital resources. As I said, computing services now provide GPT EDU, and API key management has been an ongoing problem. And we're attempting to address it by implementing a platform with LiteLLM in order to manage that and create a system where people can share their research information. Projects need new approaches to estimating costs so that they can communicate that to the powers that be and make the case for their research. I think my trouble or the barrier that I saw through all of this is that I would be asked to experiment, and I love experimenting, but it's hard to say how much experimenting is going to cost in terms of tokens, which have actual value. So, and token values are changing rather rapidly. So I can't say a specific number. I can't say this will cost $50 or $100. I have to kind of figure out, well, what do I think that this is probably going to cost, and then figure out how do I structure my request for resources in a way that communicates I think the terms or the scope of the project or whatever experiment I'm working on, and sets limits for the terms of the experiment. So developing new techniques to figure that out and build that into the process, I think, is going to be a big important part of the project management office going forward. And organizations overall need to build internal policy that makes it easier to do these experiments. I think if we want to be dynamic and try to do new things and grow in the role and capacity we can have as libraries, there needs to be some investment now. Slide.
Yeah, Dom, we're at the 30-minute mark, so I don't know if you want to highlight if there's a certain thing you want to go to, or we can maybe do 3-4 more minutes.
Let's say skip subscriptions, licensing. I think we'll make this available somewhere. Hosting, again, stuff. Ethics, transparency. Let's talk about projects. We're doing AI-powered onboarding materials, reference chatbot, handwritten identifiers. That's like looking at distinctive collections and trying to place them based on the other distinct collections that we have identified. And the research information system CV service work ingestion pilot, that's taking the service work from faculty and putting it into our research information management system. Getting that running automatically is one of the first things that I did, and really has been one of the few things that I've done that deals directly with AI. So, cool. We are going to be doing a new version. Slide. Here are architecture archives. Again, this is a little project. We got some location data, geocoded it. We have individual items for these. I built a little interactive map. We cannot use it now because this is a slideshow. Here's that. That's Pittsburgh, Iliad borrowing. This video we cannot play. Open access eligibility checker, I think, was a good project management win, something we can prototype and then find a product that matches what our prototype builds. Can see print music voicing analysis, looking at and trying to see how our collection's structured. Slide. Current cool ones. Johnny-Ack emulator for use with distinctive collections. Very excited about this. It's my little baby right now. AI-powered onboarding material workflows, and the university is doing an AWS Bedrock pilot coming into the future. Slides. So lessons learned. Talk to everyone, make friends, hit the ground running. 90% of the work is data acquisition and pre-processing. People are excited and terrified about what AI will do. Most problems that people want to solve with AI already have solutions that can be implemented with other technologies and project management. Slide. Here's what I think the future is going to be. Like it or not, AI is here to stay. Libraries have historically been leaders during transitioning economies. Libraries can leverage that experience to help play a role in educating the workforce, and the future will require investment and training. Slide. The resident is an agile role to explore problem spaces, identify achievable solutions, facilitate teams, and an opportunity to re-examine librarianship, support a transitioning workforce, and help libraries prepare for an unknown future. Slide. So my question for you is, what would an AI-ready library look in your institution? Slide. Here we go.
Okay, well, it looks like we have a few open questions in the Q&A. If one of you guys would like to tackle that.
Oh, there we go. How are you collaborating and consulting with? Here. So how are you collaborating or consulting with intellectual property and copyright offices? Is the collaboration in terms of individual projects or broader conceptual and policy levels? This role is very experimental. I think that the experiments are meant to kind of lead to identifying projects and kind of bringing them into the full cycle. I think when it's in the experimental stage, you have to be very sensitive to people and to what they want to do with their data. And I think people are very, very protective. And the intellectual property and copyright offices that are working with us are not exactly relevant in this case. We're using models and we're kind of doing stuff with models, but we're not really feeding anything into them. Our unique materials or kind of like the CVs or kind of archives collection, I think a little cautious about throwing those out there into the wild. Putting them into a, just OpenAI's API. I think that there are, some concerns. So when I do things, I generally anonymize them and then create synthetic data from it. Let's see, is the compilation in terms of an individual project or broader? I think it's, I try to make friends. Try to go to events. The AI architect has been putting together a lot of good university-wide programming. I'll go to a lunch and I'll talk to people and I'll be nosy about whatever their project is. And people generally get very excited when you're excited about what they're doing.
Amanda would love to hear more about some of the projects at the end, and I would as well. So maybe some of your favorites that you worked on, if you could give us a little more details about that, or if anyone has a specific project that they're interested in.
Please tell me if you have anything specific. I'll show you this now because we could not see it. So I harvested all of our interlibrary loan data and then created a database of all of the OCLC symbols and then used that geocoding information to see where we're lending and where we're borrowing. And this is much better. So this starting in 2011, that's about 200,000 transactions. And you can see here how our materials are going all over the world and where we're getting materials from. So very cool. And I think the kind of end goal is to maybe make a live version of this so we can show people where our materials are at this moment. That's kind of a next step thing. There are some APIs going out of business that we need to figure workarounds for. But this was very cool. I think getting this data together was a lot of fun. Did anyone have any particular project?
There's a question about the OA access project.
Oh yeah. Here, do you want to go back to that, or it's actually one I do not have up and running. I do not have it. Let me see. So what I did, I guess, in that situation is I, reached out to the librarian in charge of open access materials right now, Emily Bongiovanni. I was talking to her, like, well, what do you want to do? Is there something you want to do with AI? And we kind of talked about problems, and she really kind of boiled down, I want to be able to have people like, put the journal title into something, then be able to go through something and give an answer. This is covered under this particular plan. This is how open access works for us locally. We sit there and that's not really AI, that's just a logic gate. So I built a little application and pulled out some information for the APC funds and just processed a spreadsheet, built the prototype. The prototype did what we need. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I need to build it out. Maybe I need to find a product. And as it happens, we were referred a product. I will stop this and I will share what we did. See if I can find it. While I'm doing that, are there any other questions?
I was going to say, while you're doing that, I think it also kind of helped the project management office to be able to tell us about problems or ideas you have, whether it is AI or not. Maybe it's more data science or a visualization or a workflow or automation. It just sort of, AI was sort of a way to initiate some conversations and then go from there. So I thought it was a good outreach method in that way.
Yeah, I think in general, people have problems. People want AI to solve problems, but AI is really not the solution that they need. There are, I think, old solutions that are very reliable and cheap. And what people need is a little bit of technical knowledge from someone and some project management, and they can resolve the problem within their space. Let me see. So Cyfree is the name of the service. Let me go.
After that, I don't know if you want to talk about the emulator, because that gets it more into like cultural heritage.
Oh, yeah.
That might be just a minute on that would be maybe
Yeah, so here, actually, I can share that right now. I'll do that while I'm share. Let's get emulator. Share.
I'll say, Amanda, feel free to reach out to us and we can share more on that.
So Archives has some of Herb Simon's original papers, the things in his office. A large portion of them from his time at Rand, and one of them is a computer program that runs on what we believe is JOS 1. So I'm building a Johnniac emulator so we can try to run the program. It plays a single game of chess. It's quite interesting. I will throw some. Ken, can you throw that video that I sent you in chat? The YouTube. Thank you. But I was able to get this to work. It does reasonably execute some things. Math. But you can also do something rather cool where you can take this Obsidian directory of JAWS code, cut it, then take it back. Reset this, load the program. Okay. And then do you have a little program that runs and creates directories and stores information within the memory. JAWS 1 is a strange early language, so everything's kind of working this way, but really cool. What I want to do is get the code up and running, see exactly what it does. I think it plays a single game of chess. The Polaroid game, the Opera House game, it's a famous teaching game of chess, and I want to get the machine to play itself and see if I can get it to unplay itself.
I think that gets at the history of AI, of like the early pioneers of it, what tools they, so we can look at that today to see that.
Yeah.
There's a anonymous question that came through. I'll just post it in the chat. Maybe it's easier to see than in the hand thing there, but maybe that's something for Dom or Ken to.
Yeah, let's see. How do you mitigate and distorting the requirements to fit AI solutions? Undermining the values, goals, tasks in favor of shiny and new. Honestly, I try to give people solutions that aren't AI. AI costs money. AI is expensive. There are better solutions, and they're probably more reliable. I think as far as products, we're in this gold rush stage. People are trying to develop these new tools and just have a foothold on new markets. And I think we're going to have a lot of slop. And as time goes on, we'll see what hangs on. But until then, we're going to have a lot of old firms shoving AI into old products that don't need it, and a lot of people trying to create new things that are kind of bad. Let me, so here, let me, I'm going to change sharing one more time. So let me show you this cool stuff. These are.
And I'll just add on that while he's doing that for our anonymous question. I think that's the value of having it in our project management office too, where it's really more about scoping and what are we trying to do here? Yeah, maybe we'll consider AI, but we have a larger palette rather than it being sort of based in a tech development or something like that. It's really based in a project management office, so we can maybe look at that with a sober mind in terms of how we're trying to approach the problem. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, so this is program. It was in Simon's office. It's probably from about 1960. And it's written in, I think it's not base, it's a octal. So really weird, really cool. But their documentation for it doesn't exist. So there's a bit of reverse engineering, seeing what we can do, seeing how we can kind of replicate a Johnniac and see how the code plays out. But
and how's that connected to AI?
Well, this is program is early in the history of computation, but it's also perhaps one of the earliest pieces of artificial intelligence being used. And it's really cool to see it printed out and just there as a physical object. And this serves as the foundation for all of these other technologies that are built on top of it. I think BASIC kind of evolved out of things like this with JAWS. So a lot of cool things to be able to do. See if they're, but also very boring in some ways. And you have to get, so yeah, you can see some notes here: static exchange value, J, no attacker, exit, direction, disengage. So it's like telling the chess set to do stuff and how to react to things. And it's really cool to think about how, as an ancient game, but people were thinking through the technical processes and the decision science that allows you to create it in a virtual world. This is one of the first virtual representations of a real thing. So really cool. And honestly, I think I've been playing around with models and seeing if I can trick them into doing anything with this. So this has been, very joyful. And I think if I can get it to work and get it to play, I like to have a little digital asset or something with it. Oh, any more questions? Let me see if I can find.
And I do know we're at time, so I want to respect
Yeah,
the
I'm good.
coordination
think-
of the thing. They do have a question popped up, but maybe
Yeah. If anyone, I guess my email is in the presentation. If anyone wants to contact me, I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And whoever asked about the open access eligibility checker, please reach out and I'll show you the resource. But thank you all for coming.
I think the one
Feel
about
free to
project
drop me an email. I'm sorry, I was just going to say, feel free to drop me an email as well if you have any additional questions. Really quickly, we don't have a specific SaaS threshold for projects we undertake. We look at it, we evaluate every proposal on a case-by-case basis, and that's how we approach it. So I could talk more, but I know we're at the end of time.
And I'll just say we encourage people to use a project management office, but if a faculty member wanted to explore something on their own, that's cool too. We're really there to help and to provide resources if they need it. So Sherry, want to get us out of here?
Well, I mean, we're okay. We can linger a little longer if people want to.
Okay. All right. I thought we had a harsh.
No, the hour is the hard deadline.
I don't know why I thought
Yeah.
1:45 or something. Okay.
So
I
are there
mean,
any more
only thing,
questions?
Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
only thing I'll add. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say the only thing I'll add to what I said before in terms of the size and scope of things we'll undertake is we work for libraries. We have limited resources. So we have to ensure that anything that comes down through the PMO's project proposal form is aligned with the institution's strategic plan. So we like passion projects. Passion is important, but if it libraries and the institution's goals, we have a limited amount of resources we can throw towards that project. But if it does, then you're talking about something maybe we can put some resources behind. But it's on a case-by-case basis.
I don't know, Dom, if you want to talk about talking to some of the faculty about like with the music idea, where how you're just scoping idea, even if nothing develops, it's kind of almost like consulting. Just that question again about how you've engaged with some of our faculty and staff and walking them through it.
Oh, I think I generally pester people. I try to get them to go out to coffee with me and complain about their problems. What are the problems that are challenging your work? What are the problems challenging your life? How can we build solutions that make that a little bit easier? And maybe it uses AI, maybe it uses something else. I think more often than not, it's something else. But when there are opportunities for AI, we've been able to do some cool things. The RIMS pilot, I think, is the kind of immediate thing, the thing that's on my plate right now. But really, a lot of it is people want to be able to visualize data and like work with their data in a different way, and they see the AI as like some sort of mechanism or a magical tool to get there. Experience. Yeah. So from past experience, tech adoption support in libraries, are you concerned about the sustainability of projects and support when the Wild West becomes more settled? OpenAI is already a big company, and most of the tools that are coming out are built on top of that or the Claude model with a couple of extra steps. So, in some ways, I think that the West has already been conquered. What we're doing right now is really figuring out what are the things that we can actually do with the models. I think young people are doing amazing things and innovating, and that's really where a lot of the new products are going to come out. And I think, certainly CMU is going to have some new startups coming that really try to change the way people use them and how we can really push automation and information discovery.
Well, if no one else has any questions, I just want to remind everybody that the videos for these talks, all the talks, including this one, will be available on this platform for a while. And I dropped a link to our YouTube playlist in the chat if you want to grab that now. All of the sessions we've posted there, we're getting them up as fast as possible. Hopefully they'll be up by the end of the week. And if you all send me your slides for this presentation, I can make sure they get uploaded as well, where people can access them.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you. It was
And
very
if you guys,
informative.
and if you guys can, please take our survey.
Yes,
Thank
we
you
want
all.
the survey.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.